Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome. Mark and Elena were at Baltimore yesterday and the day before presenting at the Wildlife Habitat Council Conservation Conference. And so I think it's going to join us, but I'm the point person for starting our webinar here. So Elena included this. People talk about caterpillars becoming butterflies as though they just go in a cocoon, slap on wings, and are good to go. But caterpillars actually have to dissolve into a disgusting pile of goo to become butterflies. So if you're a mess wrapped up in blankets right now, keep going. So that's our winter encouragement for you and reminder to record this. Just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about over the next hour. We'll just share some updates from Project Wild, and then we're going to have Carissa from Pennsylvania and Carrie from Maryland share a little bit about the joint trainings that they've done, which is really exciting, and we're happy to have them share with y'all. And then Dan Berto from Into the Outdoors is going to share with us about some of the great resources and activities that they have online. So I'll just jump right in. We do have, you probably saw in my email earlier, Megan Bowe is our new Project Wild coordinator in Illinois. Jennifer Day Tarek had been our coordinator with the Douglas Hart Nature Center, but she was actually on the board of EEAI and felt that it would be great to have all the Project Wild programs in one place in Illinois, because they had kind of been separated. Growing Up Wild was in one place and Project Wild was in another place. So now Megan is our new coordinator. So welcome to Megan. And we also just wanted to give you a heads up that in January, we will be sending out the annual report form for everybody to fill out. We're gonna do the Excel spreadsheet again. We've kind of gone back and forth with different options, but the Excel spreadsheet, we hope, strikes a nice balance of being easy to just fill in the numbers, but then also easy to pull the data together. So it's not a paper form, it's not a PDF. We can manipulate the data easily, but hopefully it's not too cumbersome for y'all to have to fill out either. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll when we email it out, we will give you some pointers and just highlight things to pay attention to as you fill that out. And that will be for the calendar year of 2019, from January 1st, 2019 through December 31st. And then we've been updating you on these webinars. If you've joined us or watched the recordings, Aquatic Wild and Project Wild have been with the printers. So those will be ready to ship soon. And I think, Mark, you are with us, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I can give a quick update on that.
That'd be great.
Okay, how about I do that right now?
Sounds good.
Okay, so yes, and that is, we are finishing up the reprint for the next printings of Aquatic Wild and Terrestrial. Aquatic Wild will have a 2009 copyright year in it, whereas Terrestrial will say 220, although they'll probably end up actually getting out to the States around the same time. Aquatic Wild was actually printed some weeks back, but we're just getting to the point now where it can be shipped. And Terrestrial just came off the press, and it should soon be shipped to our warehouse as well. I mentioned this before, but in case you didn't hear from previous webinar, or in case you forgot, the Aquatic Wild Guide, the differences, they're not obvious mostly, but there's some changes that could make a difference, especially in the front matter, as well as one of the activities, whale of a tail, that you might choose not to combine the previous printing 2017 and the most recent printing 2019 in the same workshop. Although if somebody wanted, the older guide because it had the instructions for the life-size inflatable whale, they might prefer the previous printing. And then with the Terrestrial, the contents are essentially the same, so I wouldn't worry about combining those. Some folks might notice that the new terrestrial guide is just slightly thicker than the previous one, and that's simply because it's on a different stock of paper that's a little bit thicker, but the contents are the same.
Hey, Mark.
And yes.
For the this is Carissa. For the terrestrial wild, will the page numbers still be the same, or are there more pages added?
The page numbers will be the same for terrestrial.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, and the page numbers, an important change for aquatic, that I'll say again too, is that the page numbers did change for aquatic, but not for terrestrial. And it's also the case that we still have the previous printing still in stock, and so it could very well be not until January when these even start shipping out at all, once the old stock is used up. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I know you were traveling today, so thanks for being here and
Indeed.
sharing. Okay, also our next monthly-ish webinar is going to be in January, so we're going to take December off. And we're excited because it's actually going to be a joint webinar for Project Wild, Project Learning Tree, and Project Wet coordinators. And we're collaborating with the Earth Day Network because next year is the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day. So it's pretty exciting. And basically Earth Day Network is going to talk about, Tracy from Earth Day Network is going to talk a little bit about some of their initiatives that they're doing throughout the year and in the month of April and around Earth Day to talk about environmental education and stewardship. And so we're going to each take some time to talk about activities that you could do to just connect the Earth Day happenings with Wild, Wet, and Learning Tree. So we're excited to do that. So it's for the coordinators. And if you guys want to invite your facilitators, you are welcome to do that as well. So we'll send out the Zoom info, but just mark your calendars Thursday, January 23rd. And with that, I will hand it over to Carissa and Carrie.
Hi, everybody. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. If you want to just put in the chat that you can hear me. This is Carissa Longo. Oh, no one's saying they can hear me.
Yes.
Yep, okay. Just want to make sure. This is Carissa Longo. I'm the Pennsylvania Project Wild Coordinator. So this was my kind of crazy idea. I had met Carrie Wixted and Cindy Itkin at one of the Wild Coordinators conferences, and we just completely hit it off. And I got this idea that, you know, I'm kind of in this wilderness doing facilitator trainings, hoping I'm doing them right. And I wanted to see how somebody else did it. So usually to travel out of state, I need the governor's office permission to travel. So I wanted to go to Maryland, and my boss gave me special permission. As long as, you know, I used my own car and found a place to stay, I could go. So Carrie very graciously invited me to stay at her house. And I got to kind of observe and help with the Wild, Wet, and PLT dual training that she did over 2 days. So if you want to change the slide, we'll switch to Carrie.
Okay.
Hello. So just to give you some background, we held our training in February of 2019. And as Carissa mentioned, it is a joint wet Project Learning Tree and Wild training. And we were just piloting this 2-day training this year, that February. So there were some hiccups with the workshop, but I was really thankful to have Carissa along. And after she came to mine, then I asked if I could come to hers. And so I joined her in September, this September, out in Pennsylvania, and I went up to Bald Eagle State Park for her 2-day training, and she trained on the Wild series, mostly on Project Wild, but it also included a few other projects.
Yeah, I don't manage Aquatic, so we just didn't do Aquatic. We did, you know, a couple of we talked briefly about Project Wild and some other things like that. Next slide.
Thank you.
I don't know what's going to happen with the.
So, oh, hello?
Did somebody have a question?
No, I think that was Elena signing on, but her audio is muted now.
Okay.
So there were definitely a lot of benefits to having that dual coordinator at the trainings. certainly each of us brought new ideas to each other's trainings and new tools and new techniques. So Carissa brought some fantastic handouts, like with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and her checklist that she gives to her new wild facilitators and everything. And so we incorporated that into my training, and when I went to her training, I brought tools like the glow germ for using as an extension onto bat blicks, temperature guns for using with keeping cool, and just some of the different variations that we do on those activities. And what was really nice is, both of us talk about these programs being international, but when you're just hearing it from one person, sometimes it's hard for the facilitators to grasp. But having somebody out of state talking about their programs helps, I think, our facilitators think of it as a larger scale program than just within the state. And then finally, another great benefit is having another set of hands as backup, especially when you have some difficulties in the training. So next slide, please.
So this is a picture of Carrie teaching in Pennsylvania with her fabulous, one of the things that she brought so many things that added and made our training so much better. Those cool little plastic circles in there are bases or markers. So I immediately had to go buy some of those. And then she stocked Target clearances to get those amazing butterfly wings for Monarch Marathon. So not only, like she said, it wasn't just backup, it was, from a coordinator's perspective, again, we are sometimes alone on our island in our state. And so having that same coordinator perspective and somebody else who knows how to do a facilitator training. I mean, obviously I had other state park staff there to, back me up and help me, but they've never done a facilitator training, so they didn't have that same perspective. So it was great to have her there. These are actually quotes from the post-workshop evaluation that we did in Pennsylvania. So, I was really pleased to see that people really recognized that Carrie was there. And like she said, with the statewide coordination, you can say it to your blue in the face, but it really hit them. They're like, oh, this is an international, program, and these people are working really hard, not just in Pennsylvania. Also, it was my first training. Before that, I was just doing wild for what we call our Commonwealth. Pennsylvania is a Commonwealth, so our Commonwealth facilitators who were just under my agency and now becoming, the whole statewide wild. This is my first training with not what we call non-Commonwealth facilitators, so people who do not work for state parks. So I was really concerned about them because we had a large contingent of our state park educators. So we tend to be a force of nature when we get together. So I was worried that that force might overwhelm and make some people feel marginalized. But with Carrie there, as you can see in the one quote, she said that she felt it allowed the non-Commonwealth facilitators to feel more included, and having Carrie there. I mean, Carrie was so generous and shared these amazing resources that like extra things she's created with the training. So that was really amazing. Next slide. So this is Carrie's picture from her training that was in February. And the one thing we definitely learned, like we need to, you need to work with somebody who you already know a little bit, that that you work well with, just like picking another facilitator. And we had to be really, really clear about roles and responsibilities. It was hard for me in her training. Her training was really tight, and I was so excited. It was hard for me to be quiet and shut my mouth. And she was very patient with me, having trouble shutting my mouth. So, being clear about roles of who's going to bring what. Are you actually going to teach the other person's training? Are you going to help? What roles you're going to have? Another thing we were really cool with was, the last minute stuff. You're always running around and you're always running out of time. So we were both used to that. So it was okay that the day before we were still kind of like, okay, we're going to do this and do that. We did need to allow extra time for having that extra person there. We shared the planning. Carrie used a Google Drive, and I used, I can't really use Google Drive, but we tried. But I think our biggest recommendation would be to be really clear about who's doing what. Don't assume that someone's bringing something, and offer time for them to actually add to the training and adapt questions And I think it went really well. It really added to the training. It made it easier on me when Carrie was in Pennsylvania. Hopefully it made it easier on her being me being in Maryland. And we're open to questions. And Carrie, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. It was really helpful having somebody else who was knowledgeable with the wild program there and bringing your experience in and everything. And certainly with my training, the timing was so tight that that I realized I should have added extra time so Carissa could bring in more of her perspective and everything.
But it was hard. I mean, you were doing three curriculums over 2 days with 2 other facilitators. So that was crazy, and I was really really appreciative that you allowed me to come with it being that tight at all. And we didn't have to share what. Oh, and it snowed, and the people apparently in Maryland can't handle snow at all.
Nope.
At all. It was flurrying, and they totally freaked out, all of them. So that was also a lesson for me. But it was also neat to see how Maryland handles facilitators, that most of their schools have a nature center. So I learned a little bit more about how Maryland teachers and non-formal educators work as well. So I think that was beneficial for me to come back and share that with my colleagues.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing. This idea of joint facilitator trainings has definitely come up, and just joint trainings has come up especially as we've been talking to some of our new coordinators. And so we really appreciate y'all taking some time to share how it went and your lessons learned. And it seems really great all around. Does anybody?
Yeah, I mean, doing a facilitator training is scary. It's a lot of work. And the first one, I know, I had been to 1 or 2 before, but the first one I was doing, I did a wet on my own with help, but I was the coordinator. So there's so much on your shoulders as the coordinator of, not only having everything ready, and Carrie very generously shared her facilitator manual. So that's the other thing, how we handle coordination of the facilitators was also really, really interesting. But having her perspective was super beneficial, and she's an amazing naturalist, so she was able to add even more to it. And I think it went really well. Does anybody have any questions on how to do this? Let's see, in Florida, this is from Anita, we used to combine facilitator trainings, and we have again been asked by WET to do this again. So yeah, I think the key though is to really communicate, and if you're kind of like Carrie and I, where you're so busy, no matter how hard you plan, you're always at the last week frantically putting everything together. Be clear about that and say, you might not hear from me for a while, and then all of a sudden you're going to get 17 emails. And we were both fine with that. So, that was, Carrie, is there anything else you can think of as far as tips? Or I think my other one would be, get clearance from your boss. Make sure it's okay with your supervisor for you to travel to another state.
Yeah, I think you hit all the high points. And just as a note too, I framed it as, I was invited to Pennsylvania to help with the training, and that also was very well received and everything by our staff here. So because we were having that exchange.
Cool. Yeah, we can certainly share. Do you want us to share the agenda for, I assume you want the one from Maryland and one from Pennsylvania? We can certainly do that. My facilitator checklist is basically a checklist of, it's a checklist of all the things to do, how to handle things with your workshop, and when you should be working on stuff. So yeah, I can certainly share that. I also learned a really cool thing that probably everyone else in the world knows. I was always making flyers in Publisher, and if I had to in Word, and Carrie taught me how she makes them in PowerPoint. I had no idea you could use PowerPoint to make flyers, so that's my new favorite thing to do, is to use PowerPoint to make all these things. Because at first she sent me all these 2-page PowerPoints, and I was really confused as to why she had 2-page PowerPoints, but now I understand. So. Any other questions from anybody?
Okay. Well, thanks again. And you all have, if you don't have Carissa and Carrie's contact info, you can find it on our website at projectwild.org if you want to shoot them an email to ask any follow-up questions or give them a call. And I see that Kim in Georgia said that y'all do monthly calls with WET and PLT to talk about your joint program, and that really helps in the planning and preparation. That's great. It's so cool just to see all this collaboration. That's one of our 5 core values at AFWA. We've been talking about a lot lately, collaboration. So you guys are setting a really good example on that front. And Heather said that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Heather in Colorado said that they're just starting to look at partnering with WET and PLT. So she would really appreciate anything that if people are willing to share who have done the same thing. So awesome.
Oh, I will add too, I know in Carrie's, I haven't done one where it's a joint curriculum yet, but I know I learned by watching Carrie's, the one thing you have to be careful with too is the different ways that people kind of coordinate the facilitators. Carrie and I are very, very, very similar in how we coordinate, you know, how you get books, how you get your paperwork, but leaving time for everyone to very clearly explain, because if not, in facilitators' brains, it all meshes together of how they get a proposal to people and how they get books. So that I think we had to be in Maryland, you know, super clear. They had to be super clear as to how to get books.
Gotcha. Good point. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay. So and Cal in Arizona said that they're partnering too. So it's so great to see that and to see everybody sharing. So like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Heather, I saw you had a question about the guide prices and changes, and the price of the Project Wild guide is not going to change. There might be moderate increases, slight increases to the other guides, which we're still hashing that out, but that will take effect January 1st, 2020. But the Project Wild guide will not be increasing.
And another change along those lines too is that we will be asking for purchases that are by the box instead of by individual copies.
Yes, good reminder.
And we'll send more instructions about that.
Yes, and Elena pointed out in the chat, the increases in the other one relates to printing costs, and that's what we're trying to weigh those numbers to come up with the new order form for 2020. Okay, so now we're gonna hand it over to Dan Bertalon. Is that how you say it, Dan?
That's close enough. It's Bertalon.
Bertalon. Okay. All right. And I'll just say that Silvana, who processes our guides, had forwarded us an email about a program with Into the Outdoors and a video, and we kind of started exploring your website, and we were like, oh, this is really cool. They've got all that great stuff on here. And then I know you talked with Elena, and Elena, do you want to say anything by way of introduction or just connection with Project Wild and Into the Outdoors?
No, I'll just thank Dan for his time and thank him for sharing these resources with us, because I think they'll be great supplements to Project Wild activities. There's a lot of great videos and lesson plans that go along with those videos. And so it's really nice to have that technology integration. Also, we've been working a lot, as you know, on R3 issues. And so they've done a great job of connecting the R3 content to their videos and lesson plans. So thank you so much, Dan, for being there.
Yeah, thanks for the chance to be on. Maybe I can back up first of all and frame really what Into the Outdoors is and break it apart into its broadcast components and its educational components. Into the Outdoors is a syndicated broadcast television show. It qualifies for FCC E/I Education Information Programming. It airs in 32 markets in 7 states. It's also distributed nationally on 7 different digital channels to a potential audience of about 130 million. The show format is a half hour. It follows kind of a train of thought that we empower kids to ask critical questions about things that impact their lives, take them on a journey of discovery where they learn from experts and research the answers to their critical questions. Then we take this half-hour program, we tease it apart into 4 separate classroom STEM-based science education videos. Those go on our website. We supply background information. Can I show the screen on here somehow?
Yeah. Let me stop sharing mine, and I think then you can share. Stop share.
Is
Okay.
mine on there now?
Not yet. So if you,
Let me go back and do a share thing here.
okay,
Sorry, this is my first time here.
no problem.
Oh, it didn't work. Let's try that again. All right, I seem to have lost my other screen. I apologize for that. Darn it. Well, then I'll just pull up and go back and see if I can get your screen, which I can't.
Okay. You want me to put up the website?
Yeah, if you could put up the website, that'd be terrific.
Okay. All right. I'm sharing my screen, and I will pull up into the outdoors.
.org.
All right.
So what we've done here, and let me give you a little bit of background on this. Into the Outdoors is the only syndicated broadcast youth education series that's been on the air 18 years. It's the only one that's been fortunate enough to earn 16 Emmys as the top youth educational series. And unlike some stuff that shows too many lions in Africa eating more zebras or penguins in the Arctic, which are cool, we deal with things that are issues right here in the United States with fish, wildlife, and environmental issues. As you can see on the website, we've got 5 major categories. Those are broken down into subtopics within each one. Some of the interesting things about what we do is backgrounded in work that I did for close to 5 years and working with Pearson Education in replacing the Discovery Channel and doing over 240 science education films for all the companion their science textbooks was to have a way that you could empower kids and engage kids right from the get-go to have interest in a topic. And then to provide them a stakeholder role where they had ownership, provide a critical question that impacts their lives and their value system, and then take them on this journey of discovery using video to introduce them to the subject. And then after that, whether it's a textbook or the lesson activities that we have, then we have extended peer-driven learning in the classroom where kids from one session to a full week can have peer interaction with research, debate, different stakeholder roles and the questions that come up to where they really tease apart these lesson activities. For instance, if you click on wildlife and conservation, and then if you scroll down to the birth of wildlife conservation, and by the way, this particular show won an Emmy last year as the top youth educational series. And what you've got here to start it off is a 6-minute video that talks about the legacy of conservation in North America. But then when you get into the overview, if you go on down further, it talks about some of the things that have happened in North America and how things have changed. And then further on down, you have Learn More, which gives you an advanced overview, if you click on that. And then further on down is where you get into the lesson activity. As you'll see, the website has links that provide background information, and you'll probably see a number of agencies and organizations that you're really familiar with here. But what's interesting about these high school lessons, such as managing Pleistocene megafauna, which sounds pretty weird, but when you tease it apart, it takes kids back in time to the first paleo hunters that came to North America and discovered this proliferation of megafauna that once inhabited North America. And although they didn't have the foresight to think about wildlife management or the North American model of wildlife management, this particular lesson divides the classroom into groups where they have to do research and use their established value systems and guidelines to decide what roles they're going to play in the future of wildlife in North America. And so it takes a concept that we're all familiar with, but puts it in a totally different realm where kids get to research, debate, make presentations, and then finally come to a conclusion on how to manage wildlife. One of the interesting things about our content, you'll find you'll find a lot of television companies, matter of fact, almost all of them, have this big C at the end of their television programs, which is copyright. And there are a lot of lesson activities and classroom videos out there that are copyrighted. Everything that we do is free open source. That means that every agency, every Project Wild coordinator, every facilitator, every homeschooler, anybody in the nation can click on our materials, download all of the videos, can download all the lesson activities, all of the content, repost it on their websites, redistribute it however they want, because our goal here is to not hold fast to these things that we've created and squeeze another nickel out of them, but to truly empower our next generation to be able to ask critical questions and use their value systems on how to become the next stewards of planet Earth. And you'll see that throughout all of our activities. That's kind of a brief overview. Would you like some questions, or would you like to dive into some of the aquatic education stuff that we have?
How about we pause and see if anybody has any questions, and then we can take a look at the aquatic stuff. Any questions for Dan?
Dan, this is Carissa in PA. Would you be willing to write some sort of blurb about this so that we could send it out to our facilitators? It sounds really amazing.
Well, actually,
have like a little promotional thing that we could use in an email?
I'm going to make sure that tomorrow you get an e-newsletter that has all this in it. So yes, yeah.
Dan?
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been sending out periodic letters to almost everybody in the R3 community. I know we've probably missed some people. We just did upgrade our mailing list to include all the Project Wild coordinators, so you guys will be on the loop on that.
Oh, that's great, because I've never gotten a newsletter, so that's awesome.
And ironically, if you look under aquatic and angling science, you'll see, scroll on down, Your First Catch, which is a mini documentary with background information on how Pennsylvania created their first catch program with the mobile first catch centers and how it's working.
Oh, that would be we're weird. We have a separate fish commission and a separate game commission. So
Okay.
That would have been the fish commission. That's really cool though.
Right, okay. Any more questions?
Yes, I think we'll make sure you get Laura's email address in Maine. She would love to receive the newsletter as well, so we'll make sure you have her address.
Yeah, is there any way you can send me like a universal list, and then I can be sure that's incorporated into our list for the e-newsletter?
I can share the list of addresses with you all, and then we'll just let everybody know. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan at the moment? Okay, I'll go back to the main. Tell me where to click.
Yeah, if you go to aquatic and angling science,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can scroll down through there. I think we currently have 16 classroom films with lesson activities on there. Some of our partners who we're helping tell the story with is Wisconsin DNR, U.S. Forest Service. We received a multi-state conservation grant that maybe some of you are familiar with to do a bunch of these. And I think some things that are of interesting, if you go down to biological carrying capacity, which is kind of near the bottom, and click on that, that particular video is approaching over 200,000 views and the different distribution methods that we have for it. And the lesson activity is a custom one that was created here on biological carrying capacity and seems to really work well in classrooms. Almost all of our lesson activities, when you look into them and see them, you'll see that they're correlated to all different kinds of standards, whether it's Common Core or Next Gen Science standards. And those are listed in the upper right-hand section so that for an educator, they can just do a quick search. They can see if it's a middle school lesson, high school, whatever, and what standards are covered under it. Often there's associated videos with it. In this particular one, there's not. We usually have a gallery. And just like our videos and content, the gallery of images that we put up, everything that we have is free open source for you to download. And so if you clicked on some of the galleries, let's say that you wanted to take a look at sturgeon spawning underground, it'll bring up a high resolution picture for you that you can download.
Nice.
Something that we're doing here also, which is interesting, is that we've got one here called Aquatic Ecosystem Ethics, which is the second one down under the Aquatic and Angling Science section. And if you click on that, it opens it up and it shows you the video and tells you a little bit about it, and you can watch that. But when you get on down and you go to learn more, you can expand that. The lesson activity in this particular one, and it's common to a lot of them that we do, it's a combination almost of a discussion guide and then an extended activity. But in this particular one, and if you clicked on it and downloaded it, it comes up as a free PDF. And you can open that, or I can.
Click on the, which one? Sorry.
If you go right down to the bottom, high school lessons, and click on angling ethics,
okay,
it'll download the PDF lesson activity that's designed for the teacher. And what's interesting about most of the activities that we do is it combines a combination of economics, math, social studies, culture, all kinds of things in the environment, to where it's multidimensional in its educational background. Almost all of our stuff has pre-lesson worksheets to establish what the students know or don't understand to begin with. And then we often assign stakeholder user groups, and sometimes they conflict with each other, such as in this one. And it makes for lively discussion, debate, presentations. A lot of the presentations often involve some sort of media presentation to accompany it, so we tap into the arts. Phew, I'm thinking that's about it.
Awesome. Great. Well, as you all can see, there is a lot on here, and it's great to have so many resources all in one place that are connected. The videos, the lesson plan, the images. It's such a great resource. So we wanted to share it with y'all and bring it to your attention.
Kelly, can you try playing one of the videos and see if the sound comes through? When you do
Are you
it?
talking to me?
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Oh man, this could work out my advantage. Or yours too. I can mumble all I want at my computer and you'll just be like, blah, 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 no one's talking.
Oh yeah, okay. All right, is there a video, Dan, that you think I should play?
No, I think you could probably click on any one of them. Let me go back here to aquatic education. I think, let's go back to the homepage and go under wildlife and conservation, because we're talking wild.
Yeah.
A lot of our environmental videos, of course, touch on things. We've got one on, yeah. The birth of wildlife conservation is fine.
Okay.
Managing white-tailed deer, an awful lot of people are dealing with that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna click on this birth of conservation one. Let me know if y'all can hear the audio.
Yes, we can hear it. Great.
The following organizations have provided funding for this Into the Outdoors series.
I got 2 eyes to see the light. I got my ears to hear the night. I got my voice so I can sing. I got 2 arms to use like wings.
Come on, let's go. wait until you see all the wildlife here. It's a bird watcher's paradise.
Oh yeah, especially with all the migratory birds that come through here each fall.
Uh-oh. Sounds like some of the waterfowl might leave this place in a cooler. I thought you said this place was a refuge.
Well, I thought it was too. Let's go check this out.
My motto is, if you want answers, you go to the expert.
So the first thing we discovered about Horicon Marsh is that part of it's managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service and is a national wildlife refuge for the protection of waterfowl. So there's no hunting there. Another part of the marsh, the state wildlife area, is managed by the Department of Natural Resources for multiple uses. That includes hunting. To better understand how hunting plays a role in all this, let's explore the history of hunting in North America. Native Americans were the first to harvest the abundant wildlife throughout the nation. But when waves of European settlers spread across the landscape, some began market hunting. This uncontrolled slaughter of wild game had devastating impacts on some wildlife populations. Take the American bison, for instance. Would you believe that when Lewis and Clark explored the West, an estimated 60 million bison roamed the plains? But the combination of market hunting and slaughter by the Army reduced the bison almost to the point of extinction by the late 1800s. Then there was the passenger pigeon. Once the most abundant bird in North America, they numbered in the billions and darkened the sky.
Okay, I'll pause it there, but that just so you can get a sense, that's great. I love how they have that intro and just in that video of the kids going to the refuge and then hearing the shotgun and saying, wait, I thought this was a refuge. I think that's a great intro into the conversation.
Yeah, although you might not realize it on first blush when you watch these videos, there's between 15 and 20 scientifically and research supported production techniques that we use to empower critical thinking. And one of the things that we do is that you'll see kids hosting and asking the critical questions and discovering their answers themselves rather than some adult telling them what to think. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dan, for taking the time to come on and share the background and walk us through some of the resources.
Oh yeah, you bet. And also as a side note, we'll keep you guys in the loop with e-newsletters every month or two. I would say over the next 2 months, we're going to have another 15 videos and lesson activities on the website. So we'll really be populating it heavily with more R3, aquatic wild and wild content.
Awesome. Great. Well, we're trying to take a page out of our coordinators book too and collaborate, and seeing how y'all have links to Project Wild there and us inviting you on. I think it's just great to share resources and get more of these great activities out there.
Yep, we're stronger together.
Yes, for
Well,
sure.
thank you so much. If you want to click me off, you can. Maybe I can figure out how to do this.
Okay.
I can stop my video.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Dan.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, I have, let's see if I go back to my slides. This is my last slide. Thank you. So if anybody has any questions, we still have a little bit of time. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. Chris is a fan of the black-footed ferret. All right, until next time in January, happy holidays, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.